بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صفيه من خلقه وخليله وأمين على وحيه. Inshallah, we're going to continue our journey with the Quran. Again, let me just remind all of us what the Quran is meant to do and how do we approach it. This is a book that was meant to explain and strengthen the commitment of people to a mission. Explain a mission with the goal and the goals of Islam, or maqasid, the overarching goals of Islam, and then build the individuals and the community who can do that job. And building, it's not one-time job. It's always continuous work of shaping up. So you can see the Quran always working on the individual, working on helping us to be better individuals, working on our weaknesses and shortcomings. I mentioned before that if you want to see yourself physically, you look at the mirror. If you want to see yourself spiritually, you read the Quran, because Quran will reveal areas of weaknesses for you, will tell you which areas needs work, need some improvement. So Quran is a very good checkup. It's good spiritual checkup. So if you approach the Quran properly, you will realize because Quran will tell you what Allah likes, what He does not like, what He expects, what He does not expect from you. So you find something good mentioned in Quran that applies to you. You thank Allah for it, and you try to keep it, or even improve it, increase it. You find something bad, there is a work to do. That's like you're going to be your homework for the week or for the next few days, or there is homework to do because you discovered that some area of weakness. You find an area of weakness that does not apply to you. You thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for it, and you stay away from it. So keep that in mind. Quran is building that individual, the mission-driven individual who is fully devoted and dedicated to Allah and to His cause, which is basically fahm wa infad, muradillah, ibtigha mardatillah, that you dedicate your life to understand and fulfill Allah's purpose in pursuit of Allah's pleasure. This is a lifelong journey, so you need always that guidance, that inspiration, that empowerment, motivation, working on your brakes. It's like a car, working on your self-restraint, working on every parts of it, every parts of your personality, of your behavior, of your interaction with people, to produce that role model, mission-driven individual who is living for a cause, living for Allah. Is not living for himself, is living for Allah. And build that community. We'll see also there are some areas of weakness that the community needs work also. And then you will, there is also anything that is coming from, any threat that is coming from outside, also Quran deals with it. So Quran deals with external threats, with internal social deficiency, and with internal individual deficiencies. So keep that in mind. That it's a wonderful job. I mean, Quran enters into your heart and start doing that maintenance work and fixing things, and then does the same thing if there is a community that study the Quran together. Every time they do a session, they will come up from it with a homework. They will notice that there is some areas we are not close to that mission-driven community, united with the brotherhood, with the mentorship, with the common cause, unity of purpose and unity of leadership, there is a very clear profile in the Quran of the community that is expected and the individual who is expected. As I said before, one thing that we need to really emphasize is that there are some fundamental verses in Quran. They are principles, they are values. And there are some contextual verses in Quran that they are not principles, they are not applicable all the time, everywhere. They are contextuals. Unless we make that distinction and we start with the fundamentals, then we're going to end up with all the mess that you see, because people will take something that is either minor and blow it out of proportion, or they take something that is or applied out of context because they start building from the roofs, or they started with the decoration before the foundation and before the walls and before the pillars. And of course, it's, you heard this from me several times, and I firmly believe that between the Islam that we have today, with all the understandings, all the different versions, and the original Islam, there is very little in common. I know this is hard to accept or to say, but that's reality. There is very little in common. They look alike. We pray the same way. We believe the beliefs, if you put them on paper, we believe in Allah and the hereafter, etc. So exactly like the companions. And we pray and we fast, at least in appearance, in the same way. But when you see the result, when you compare the result, you will find that these cannot be the same thing. If they are the same thing, they should produce the same product or similar. If the process is similar, processes are similar, then the product should be similar. But the products are very different. So we have every reason to question the process itself. And the best metaphor that I found is the jewelry. The real jewelry, the diamond, the real jewelry, and the fake jewelry, they look alike. It's not easy to distinguish them. But you and I know that there is no comparison in the value if you have between the two. So I found it probably the best comparison between the Islam that we see today prevalent, which I'm not getting into any takfir or jahili or anything. I'm talking about the level of commitment, the depth of understanding, how serious we are taking it, etc. So I'm definitely need to steer away and stay away from any judgmental attitude, or start calling people that they are not Muslim, or that we are the only Muslim, all this nonsense. We should not even come close to it. Today, we're going to check a couple of verses, of those fundamental verses. One of them is, I don't exaggerate if I say, if Muslim understood that verse, you will not find any radicalism or terrorism in the name of Islam, or it's just one verse. One verse, Allah is saying, La ikraha fi din. No compulsion in religion. And if you connect it to other verses in which Allah told the Prophet ﷺ that your job ends in delivering the message exclusively. إنما عليك البلاغ وعلينا الحساب. The Prophet was told that your job exclusively is to deliver the message and not to cross it to start judging people. That's exclusive for Allah, which Muslims nowadays, it's a hobby for them. Sitting down, who is the Muslim, who's the kafir, who is the 50% Muslim, who's going to go to heaven, who's going to go to hellfire. Even Allah they abandoned the job that was assigned to them, and they kept themselves busy with the job that Allah reserved for himself. So let's start with verse 253. تلك الرسل فضلنا بعضهم على بعض منهم من كلم الله eloquence of the Quran. It didn't say Musa. منهم من كلم الله ورفع بعضهم درجات وآتينا عيسى ابن مريم البينات وأيدناه بروح القدس ولو شاء الله ما اقتتل الذين من بعدهم من بعد ما جاءتهم البينات ولكن اختلفوا فمنهم من آمن ومنهم من كفر ولو شاء الله ما اقتتلوا ولكن الله يفعل ما يريد. This came after the previous verse. تلك آيات الله نتلوها عليك بالحق وإنك لمن المرسلين. So 252 and 253. Those are the revelation of God which we recite to you, Muhammad, with the truth, and you truly are one of the messengers. And that's why Muhammad was not mentioned in the verses. There is Musa implicitly, Isa, etc. But Muhammad, because the discourse is addressed to Muhammad himself. Allah spoke to some, others he raised in rank. We gave Jesus, son of Mary, our clear signs and strengthened him with the Holy Spirit. If Allah had so willed, their successors would not have fought each other after they had been brought clear signs, but they disagreed. Some believed and some disbelieved. If Allah had so willed, they would not have fought each other, but Allah does what He will. ولكن اختلفوا فمنهم من آمن ومنهم من كفر. So it's telling us there is, about the messengers and everyone, each one of them, they were given different like status. And then mentioned some of them, mentioned Musa alayhi salam implicitly, Isa alayhi salam. One of the things that we notice here is Isa ibn Maryam. Quran is full of Isa ibn Maryam, Jesus, son of Mary. Doesn't say it with others. Why? Because to emphasize the human nature of Jesus over and over again, so that to eliminate any confusion that when it comes to the Tawheed, there is only creator and creation. And angels are different, but they're creation. Adam was created differently, but still creation. Jesus was created, Eve was created differently, but still creation. Jesus was created in a different way, but still is creation. So nothing will take you out of the status of creation and blurry the line or the separation between creator and creation. And one way Quran does this by emphasizing always Isa ibn Maryam, and then mentioning the Prophet as Abd, that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So before you go too far in praising him, and Quran mentioned not to downgrade or demote him. It's actually to praise him, that he is the servant of Allah. That doesn't take anything away. Actually, that's something that he loves, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to be the servant of Allah. وأيدناه بروح القدس. أيدناه بروح القدس as Jibreel alayhi salam. Inshallah will come when it comes to the story of the creation of Isa and the role and Jibreel in that story. But Jibreel it's the angel of revelation, and he came to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the fact that Jibreel comes to a messenger or has a role in even was sent for with the message that resulted in the creation of Isa, that does not make Jesus anything special. I mean, it's a great messenger of Allah, but that's it. So it shouldn't be more than that. We're getting close to the verse that we want to emphasize, which is Ayat al-Kursi, one of the very special verses of Quran. ولو شاء الله ما اقتتل الذين من بعدهم بعد ما جاءتهم بينات ولكن اختلفوا. So the people before the people who followed the messengers, they disagreed. That's to emphasize that this differences and disagreement is natural, even among the followers of the messenger. And we know that not long time, after Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, there was a civil war. I mean, there was a civil war, and some companions participated in it. So hoping to eliminate differences, it's not going to happen. It's only managing them. Quran does not call on only eliminating differences, but calls on managing them and containing them. As long as it is contained and managed, differences can actually become a strength. And we know that societies that are diverse, that were able to establish a system and manage their differences, they thrived and they did much better job than societies that are not, where there is no diversity. The verse finished with وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ يَفْعَلُ مَا يُرِيدُ. This is one of the statement of Tawheed that I strongly recommend to keep it in mind or to retain it, that Allah does what He wills. I mean, يَفْعَلُ مَا يُرِيدُ. Every time you come across يَفْعَلُ مَا يُرِيدُ or مَا يَشَاءُ, يَرْزُقُ, يَخْلُقُ, this is transcendent attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Reminds us of something that we know, but it tends to fade. That the power of Allah is absolute, the knowledge of Allah is absolute, that Allah does what He wills. That's very powerful. Now, sometimes we stand before or we hear about an individual who is so powerful, whether in history or currently, either because of the money they have or because of the power they have, and we get impressed. But just imagine what that power is in this universe. Is nothing, because the whole earth in the universe is a dot. The average distance between the earth and the sun is 150 million kilometers. So what is it that whatever person has a kingdom or wealth is nothing in Allah if compared. But it's good for us to bring the picture closer, because when you get impressed by these things you see in this life, you should remember that it's, when it comes to Allah, it's not just manifold, it's absolute. يا أيها الذين آمنوا أنفقوا مما رزقناكم من قبل أن يأتي يوم لا بيع فيه ولا خلة ولا شفاعة والكافرون هم الظالمون. So يا أيها الذين آمنوا, this is the preferred or favorite title for believers. Usually it makes it easier for them to answer the call when they're called. You who believe, give from what we have provided for you. And not give from your money. أنفقوا مما رزقناكم. And the end of the Baqarah, Surah Al-Baqarah, is all about spending. And Quran and Islam has a different philosophy when it comes to money, which is unique, and it may look strange, that it's not your money. It's very simple. It's not your money. And this is something that probably people will find hard to accept. What do you mean? It's not. Quran is, Islam is trying to emphasize this idea that you are just managing a portion of the money of Allah. You are given some money to manage, and you are given guidelines on how to manage it. And you were told that this is one of your best opportunity to pursue the pleasure of Allah, which you committed to. You committed to pursue the pleasure of Allah and dedicated your life to it. One of the very effective tools is actually, at the end of the day, what do you have? When you have your body, your money, and your time, and probably your knowledge. That's what you have that you can commit to pursue the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So أنفقوا مما رزقناكم. This is not something that you read it casually or superficially. This is a fundamental principle. أنفقوا مما رزقناكم مما جعلكم مستخلفين فيه. So spend from what we have provided for you and do it يعني sooner rather than later يعني من قبل أن يأتي يوم. So before the day comes when there is no bargaining, no friendship, and no intercession. Everybody who were through trouble will tell you these are what comes to mind. Especially somebody like in jail or etc. You look for somebody to bail them out, or you look for somebody to intercession or a friend or shafa'a or something to get out of that trouble. And Quran is telling you that do it while you can before it's too late, because all of these are not going to help you. Anything that you may think of is not going to help you. And as I mentioned last time, it's a one moment. It's a fraction of a second. And everything changes. Whatever was important becomes not important at all. Doesn't help you at all. Whatever probably you were neglecting or you were not paying attention to becomes the only thing that can help you. It's your account in this life and your account in the hereafter. The more you take from this account and put it in the saving account with Allah and the investment, the more that transition will be smooth. Say, this is it, that's what I worked for, alhamdulillah. The more you keep and you keep it for this life and you don't invest with Allah and you don't save money with Allah, the moment that if you do that, then you regret at that moment, the transition will not be good. وَالْكَافِرُونَ هُمُ الظَّالِمُونَ. This is very important principle that can help us heading toward that verse of La Ikrah fi Din. Whoever rejects the message, they are hurting themselves. It's now it's implicitly telling you that it's not your job, it's not your business. But الكافرون هم الظالمون, they are hurting themselves. Whoever, this is a guidance. If you miss it, you're missing a great opportunity and you're hurting yourself. So anybody who wants to be engaged in da'wah should check their compassion. If you don't have compassion, please stay away from da'wah, because da'wah should be the result driven by compassion, not by judging people or converting or anything. If the level of compassion is not high, you'd better stay away from da'wah, because da'wah, the prophets were doing it out of compassion. Ya inni lakum nasihun amin, inni akhafu alaykum. It's a people where the individual were very compassionate, to the point that Quran had to comfort Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam was feeling very bad, not hatred, feeling very bad out of compassion. لعلك باخع نفسك. You're not going to kill yourself, and you did your job. You did your job, so you shouldn't. But that tells you that Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not go start hating these people, is feeling so bad that why these people are not taken or following this path that leads to their happiness in this life and their success in this life and the hereafter. And باخع عن نفسك was in Surah Al-Kahf and in Surah Al-Shu'ara. So it's الكافرون هم الظالمون. It's none of our job to evaluate people, categorize them, judge them, convert them. All of this is none of our job. Your job, which we are abandoning to get busy with the job that Allah reserved for himself, your job is to develop yourself into a role model, to be all you can be, and that's what the Quran is trying to do with you, to be all you can be, to realize all the potential that Allah has given you, and then to maximize your positive impact on people around you, uplifting them, and to maximize your contribution for the greater good. And you do all of this in pursuit of the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the people in this world, they are not called Muslims and non-Muslims. No, it's not your job to do that. They are human beings. So they are your brothers and sisters in a large family called humanity. And then they are your fellow citizens. And you are with them on board of a ship called United States or called any other country. People, they are on that ship, as the Prophet ﷺ described. And then they are your neighbors. And then they are your colleagues. And then there are so many things that are in common. Yani common interests, common issues. Your children go to the same school. So you want that school to be in a very good shape. You live in the same neighborhood. You are in the same field working or in the same workplace. I don't know where this came from, this dichotomy, which resulted in a disaster. Is that to start seeing people as Muslim or non-Muslim. In the world, Muslims, non-Muslim. In the society, Muslims and non-Muslim. No, there is no foundations for that in Quran, which keeps steering us away from this judgmental attitude and this binary thinking. Now we come to this Ayat al-Kursi. Now, before we introduce Ayat al-Kursi, I probably did not mention today is that Quran, of course, yes, Quran is delineate the mission that you were created to fulfill and you commit yourself to when you become Muslim or when you embrace Islam. And then the goals that you should be working for in a very eloquent way and in a very diverse way, sometimes scenes from the hereafter, sometimes stories of the people before us, sometimes direct language, sometimes implicit motivation and inspiring. It's an amazingly eloquent book. But Quran is the book of Tawheed. And it's the foundation of all of this. And everything that I have mentioned, yes, that's the package, but it is resting on a foundation of Tawheed. That's why the Quran is a book of Tawheed. If you find one of the Mus'haf or Quran, whether in print or online, that has the names of Allah in red, you will find that the whole book is red, because the Quran is a book about Allah. Quran is a book from Allah, and it's a book about Allah. So it doesn't miss a verse, it doesn't miss a passage, it doesn't miss a couple of lines without reinforcing that Tawheed, because it's the foundation for everything. Before Quran tells you to do something, it lays down that foundation, Tawheed. Or after it tells you to do something or to restrain or to abstain from something, brings that idea of Tawheed. So Quran and the Islam approach does not rely on the law, even though the law is it's a contract. And a Muslim, when you are as a citizen, you are signing on a contract. So to honor the Constitution and to abide by the law. But Quran goes even, and Islam go further than that, which is to make everybody police himself or herself, self-restraint, and even go higher than what the law will permit. So even if there are legal loopholes, if they are not ethical, you don't do them. Why? Because your standards are even higher, than any possible law that can be accepted and applied among individuals. So Quran works inside so that your behavior, your thinking, your interaction, your decision, your stance, all of these, they come out of that pure source that the Quran keeps working on purifying it. Of course, doesn't mean that no, there should be law, and because no matter what you do, even if 90% responds and do restrain themselves, they don't have to be Muslim and their behavior is ethical, and they live by a set of values, etc. Of course, still we're a human being. It's not society of angels. There will be always the exception, and there will be always some setbacks. Even the same individual can maintain a high standard, but sometimes they fail in a test. So there is the law. But keep in mind that Quran always works on your heart, works on your mind, so that not on the appearance, not on, so that the outcome, like tackling things from the roots. Allah la ilaha illa huwa al-hayy al-qayyum. And nowadays, unfortunately, Muslims, in many cases, in Muslim societies, لا هذا نافع ولا هذا نافع. It's neither the internal work is effective, nor the law. People enjoy breaking the law or violating the law, and there is hardly any motivation or self-restraint really to do what people are supposed to do. الله لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم. So these are two. لا إله إلا هو, then الحي القيوم. لا تأخذه سنة ولا نوم. That's 3. له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض. That's 4. من ذا الذي يشفع عنده إلا بإذنه. That's 5. يعلم ما بين أيديهم وما خلفهم. 6. ولا يحيطون بشيء من علمه إلا بما شاء. 7. وسع كرسيه السماوات والأرض. 8. ولا يؤوده حفظهما. 9. وهو العلي العظيم. You can consider 10 or 10 and 11. It's an amazing verse, Ayat al-Kursi. Allah, there is no God but Him, the ever-living and the ever-watchful. And I said 10 or 11. If you separate al-Hayy and al-Qayyum, becomes even more. The ever-living, the ever-watchful. Neither slumber nor sleep overtakes Him. All that is in the heavens and the earth and in the earth belongs to Him. Who is there that can intercede with Him except by His leave, by His permission? He knows what is before them and what is behind them. They're very exposed, exposed inside out. But they do not, that's Him knowing everything, but for them, they do not comprehend any of His knowledge except what He wills. His throne extends over the heavens and the earth. It does not weary Him to preserve them both. He is the Most High, the Tremendous. It's a very concentrated dose of Tawheed. Of course, this is probably, and it comes with the Surah Al-Ikhlas. When it comes to the verses, fundamental verses of Tawheed, Surah Al-Ikhlas, there are some verses in Al-An'am. ذلكم الله ربكم لا إله إلا هو خالق كل شيء فاعبدوه وهو على كل شيء وكيل. Shorter version. Zumur, Yunus, Fatir, Ghafir. I can, inshallah, remind me at the end. I will list the verses, and probably, actually, you can do it now. So, Al-An'am, if Ayman or if someone can tell me the number of the surahs so that we can, actually, I think we have them. So, Al-An'am, livestock, Surah 6, verse 102. We're talking about some concentrated verses of Tawheed in Quran. Of course, there are many, but this is God, your Lord. There is no God but Him, the creator of all things. So worship Him. He is in charge of everything. No vision can take Him in, but He takes in all vision. He is the all subtle, the all aware. So An'am, Surah 6, verse 102. Yunus is Surah 10, Surah
Yes.
your Lord, yeah. Your Lord is God who created the heavens and earth in 6 days, then established himself on the throne, governing everything. There is no one that can intercede with him unless he has first given permission. This is God, your Lord, so worship him. How can you not take heed? It is to him you shall all return. That is a true promise from God. So Yunus is Surah 10, verse 3. Ghafir, a couple of verses in Ghafir. Of course, there is also Surah Al-Hashr at the end of Surah Al-Hashr, which is a condensed version of the names and attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Fatir, verse 13. Fatir is number what? Fatir is number 35. Number 35, verse 13. Just a couple of verses that I selected. He makes the night merge into the day and the day into the night. He has subjected the sun and the moon. Each runs for an appointed term. Such is God, your Lord. All control belongs to him. Those who invoke besides him do not even control the skin of a date stone. If you call them, they cannot hear you. If they could hear you, they could not answer you. On their resurrection, they will disown your idolatry. No one can inform you, prophet, like the one who is all aware. And then in Ghafir is
40.
Is 40. Jazakallahu khairan. So Surah 40. Ghafir. Verse 2. Forgiver of sins and acceptor of repentance, severe in punishment, infinite in bounty, غافر الذنب وقابل التوب شديد العقاب ذي الطول. There is no God but him. To him is the ultimate return. And then we have 63 and 64. Do we have 63? No, we don't have 63. Right. These are some verses. Inshallah, one time probably we dedicate a whole session for verses, selected verses of Tawheed, because there is, if there no Tawheed, the whole package collapses. Yeah. And it's very unfortunate the way Tawheed was conveyed to us. And I remember people opening books and then, what is Tawheed? Tawheed Uluhiyya, Tawheed Rububiyyah, Asma, Sifat, La Ta'til. It's really, they killed it. They killed the vibrancy of Tawheed as a spiritual, vibrant relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, full of love and reverence and dependence and something amazing. And then we turned into a couple of dry statements or sentences that if you memorize them, then your aqidah is good and you are away from bid'ah and your wala and bara is okay. And it's really ridiculous. And all of these disputes in our history, Mu'tazila and the Sha'ira and the Salafiyin and this and that, they really turned something so beautiful, so simple, so vibrant, so easy. And they tried to put it in boxes, and we ended up with something dry that does not inspire anybody or does not mobilize. We just sit down and debate, and whether Allah has a hand or doesn't have a hand. If he has a hand, how does it look like, etc. And then that killed the whole idea. That laysa kamithlihi shay. There is nothing like him. So it's really there is no point in dwelling in this, because that's not the purpose. The purpose is to comprehend the unique concept of God from his names and attributes, and the fact that he is cannot imagine him. Our imagination cannot encompass him. They cannot. So let's not even try, and take things the way they are and without all those complications that were really, even the Tawheed itself, which some schools of thoughts and mainly Salafis, they think that they are doing very good job, and that's an essential thing in their Islamic construct. It was messed up, because that's not the Tawheed that is meant. It's Tawheed. Again, we between the extremes, between the Sufi, probably some Sufi groups took it out and to one extreme, and then the reaction of Salafi that took it to the other extreme, and we kept like in the pendulum. We never settled in the middle. We either have that excesses in spirituality, or the response would say we need an Islam with no spirituality. We need Islam that is desert Islam, dry, with no spirituality. So Allahu la ilaha illa huwa al-hayyu al-qayyum. La ilaha illa huwa, don't take it lightly, because that's really something that Arabs at that time, because they mastered the Arabic language, they took it very seriously. That's why they didn't casually declared Shahada, because they knew that it is loaded, that this Shahada is very loaded. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. That's not, that's very powerful, and that's really, it's loaded and lots of implications. So don't take it lightly when you read it. Allahu la ilaha illa hu. La ilaha. If you can mute, brother, mute everybody, please. La ilaha, it eliminate. There is nothing, and then illallah. La ilaha illallah. It's 4 words or 5 if you add Allah in the beginning. Allahu la ilaha illa hu, or la ilaha illallah. That's half of the Shahada, which is the contract that you are signing when you embrace Islam. The contract consists of 2 parts. The first part is Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, and then wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, which inshallah we'll talk about it. It's basically more than the literal meaning. At that time, it's not like, yes, we are testifying, or we are bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and that you are his messenger. No. The Prophet was taken in the package, was as their leader and as their role model, and it's a whole package. So neither the first part nor the second part should be taken lightly. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Allahu la ilaha illa huwa al-hayyu al-qayyum. Hayyu al-qayyum. This is something that we cannot imagine. Someone who's the ever living. Even in app, there is nothing. Ever living. Hayy. Al-qayyum is the one who's taking care of everything. Everything is happening because of him, and he's taking care of everything. That's absolute power and mulk. Mulk mutlaq. Hayyu al-qayyum is the one who is in charge of everything. La ta'khuduhu sinatun wala nawm. That's confirmation. That's to bring the idea closer to us. Al-hayy conveys the message, but to bring it even closer to our mind, because we need the examples. It's like every student will tell you that if you keep teaching without giving examples, they cannot grasp. So لا تأخذه سنة ولا نوم. لا تأخذه سنة ولا نوم. And then له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض. That also should not be taken lightly. Everything belongs to him. And you make some money, you get a paycheck. That's something that Allah has sent to you through whatever, through your business, through your company, because at the end of the day, this is, if you want to take it exactly without any, له ملك له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض. And everything belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that's a lot. That's big. له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض. من ذا الذي يشفع عنده إلا بإذنه. Nobody can intercede except with his leave. A lot of time in our life, we think of what they call in Arab society wasta. You find you want to do something. If you have a neighbor, you find if I can find some connection, if I can find a connection, they can get shafi'a illa bi'idhnih. There is no intercession except with his leave. And now knowledge. So the ownership or kingdom, everything belongs to him. Now knowledge, his knowledge is also absolute. So ever living, ever watching, and then everything belongs to him. So, and now knowledge is also absolute. يعلم ما بين أيديهم وما خلفهم. That's eloquent way to say it knows everything. طبعا there are verses in Quran that emphasizes this the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala لا يخفى عليه شيء. There is nothing can, and then there are some verses that are so eloquent. وعنده مفاتح الغيب لا يعلمها إلا الله وعنده مفاتح لا يعلمها إلا هو ويعلم ما في السماوات وما في الأرض وعنده مفاتح الغيب لا يعلمها إلا هو ويعلم ما في السماوات وما في الأرض وما تسقط من ورقة سورة الأنعام I believe وعنده مفاتح الغيب لا يعلمها إلا هو ويعلم ما في البر والبحر وما تسقط من ورقة لا يعلمها ولا حبة في ظلمات الأرض ولا رطب ولا يابس إلا في كتاب مبين. ورقة one leaf drops.
What's the verse number?
سورة أنعام 6 verse 59. وعنده مفاتح الغيب لا يعلمها إلا هو يعلم ما في البر والبحر. Let's read the translation. بري والبحر. What's in the 59. 59. He holds the keys to the unseen. No one knows them but him. He knows all that is in the land and the sea. That's the first. No leaf. We are in the fall. No leaf. Falls without his knowledge. You'll see a backyard full of leaves. That's one backyard. That's one backyard. And imagine no leaf. No leaf. Falls without his knowledge. Nor is there a single grain in the darkness of the earth. Grain. In the darkness of the earth. Or anything fresh or withered. That is not written in a clear record. And it's an amazing, several verses. And that tells you why the Quran is called Quran and why it didn't say these things like just once or was categorized by theme. It was meant so that when you are reading it, all the time you have some of these things are being worked on. You are reminded of the knowledge, you're reminded of the power, of the mercy of Allah, etc. So that to strengthen that spirituality, the love of Allah, the revering Allah, depending on Allah, gratitude, etc. All of these are being worked on. And that's why these verses are scattered. Quran is not, and of course it has that amazing ability of jumping quickly between subjects without in an eloquent way, without without losing eloquence. And a lot of time different things are mentioned, but to reinforce a particular theme. And then if in every passage. So ilm, something that I'd like all of us when we recite Quran to pay attention to the verses. I told the Quran is a book of Tawheed because these are everywhere, but there are some verses that are, more concentrated dose of Tawheed. One of them is the one that we are discussing, Ayat al-Kursi, either emphasizing the knowledge or emphasizing the power or emphasizing creation, yuhyi wa yumit, as we have seen before. And we're going to see it later on, inshallah, in the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam and the king, emphasizing this yuhyi wa yumit. We have seen it, the people who fled their city to avoid death. خرجوا من ديارهم ألوف حذر الموت فقال لهم الله موتوا ثم أحياهم, to tell them that this matter of life and death, it's not, I mean, if you are so brave, you're not going to die earlier. And if you are so coward, you're not going to die later. يعلم ما بين ولا يحيطون بشيء من علمه إلا بما شاء. In the other direction, we get only out of his knowledge, only the small part that he is allowing us to get. وما أوتيت من العلم إلا قليلا. وسع كرسيه السماوات والأرض. This is, of course, a lot of debate about this kursi thing, the throne. It's, I find it nonsense. We don't even have to dwell about this. These are beautiful verses of transcendent attributes of Allah. And then we miss the whole thing and discuss what kind the throne of Allah, how does it look like? Is it a real one? Is it, etc.? And that's really not, it's really not appropriate. I don't know the kind of mess we did to this wonderful religion. His throne extends over the heavens and the earth. That's it. It doesn't weary him to preserve them both. One of us is having hard time managing his own house and family. When I say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's not a challenge for him to manage, to take care of the samawat and the ard. And that's also you shouldn't treat it just superficially. لا يؤوده, so he owns them. He knows, and then he managing them is not. When we meet a manager of top, like huge, those were of the big companies, multinationals, and this is a president or vice president or executive or whatever of Google or this or that or Apple, and we get very impressed. How we can manage this huge company. I mean, just put that in perspective. Allah لا يؤوده حفظهما لا يؤوده حفظهما. I really encourage everybody to educate yourself about basic astronomy. You don't have to become physicist or scientist or even scientist. There are a lot of things that are for non-science major. And people with no science background nowadays, there is information that is in print or online that can help educating you about, and you can see these numbers. I just mentioned one of them. The average distance between the Earth and the Sun is 150 million kilometers. I always mean to, when I teach this part, I ask the student to read the table, and the students say, average distance is 150 kilometers. Wallahi, 150 kilometers, like between DC and Richmond. 150 million, there is a 10 to the 6 above there, 150 million kilometers. Anyway, وهو العلي العظيم. وهو العلي العظيم. Again, the Ayat al-Kursi, very heavy dose of Tawheed, very concentrated, because the knowledge, the power, the everything, Hayyul, Qayyum, Ali, Azim, these are four names and attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then his throne, and the fact that he takes care of the heavens and earth without any problems, doesn't worry him to do it, and he knows everything, and only little. You cannot intercede except nobody can intercede except with his permission. It's an amazing verse, and this is something that is highly recommend, of course, to memorize it and to use it in Salah, in Tawheed, and try to, it's short, you can read it in Rak'ah with reflection, because it's really good refueling or recharging your spirituality. Ayat al-Kursi, Quran in general, that's what it does, but Ayat al-Kursi in particular has this disability. Now comes the verse لا إكراه في الدين قد تبين الرشد من الغي يكفر بالطاغوت ويؤمن بالله فقد استمسك بالعروة الوثقى لا انفصام لها والله سميع عليم. لا إكراه في الدين, no compulsion in religion. That's definitely a foundational verse. That's a principle in Quran. Don't listen to anybody who tells you this was superseded or nasakh by hadith or nasakh by verse. This is not a joke. There is no compulsion in religion. True guidance has become distinct from error. So whoever rejects false gods and believes in God, in Allah, has grasped the firmest handhold, one that will never break. Allah is all hearing and all knowing. Actually, we can go on. Allah ولي الذين آمنوا يخرجهم من الظلمات إلى النور والذين كفروا أولياءهم الطاغوت يخرجونهم من النور إلى الظلمات أولئك أصحاب النار هم فيها خالدون. Allah is the ally of those who believe. He brings them out of the depths of darkness and into the light. As for the disbelievers, their allies are false gods who take them from the light into the depths of darkness. They are the inhabitant of fire, and they will there they will remain. No compulsion in religion. One verse will void so many groups of Muslims today are based on this idea of they can judge people and they know who is saved, who is the group, the Firqa Najia, the group who's going to be saved, and they can tell you. They have a way, mysterious way to measure your taqwa or your faith, and they can tell you, and it's like measuring your temperatures. They can tell you, into your borderline, you are okay, we can accept you, we cannot, condemned into hellfire, straight. I don't know really, because this is why this is very serious, because that's leading to all the mess that we see. If you stop it there, if we end it there, right there, that there is no judgmental attitude in Islam, period. The taqwa of people, their faith, their relationship with Allah, they choose to believe, not to believe, their belief is superficial, is strong, it's none of your business. Period. Just focus on the job that you are given. That's not your job. And it's not like the job of someone else. It's a job that is exclusive to Allah. That's the one that you are messing up with. It's that we try to raise a generation of Muslims who don't have this ridiculous ideas in mind, and they don't give themselves the right. It starts by considering yourself the one who is the true Muslim. That's it. And you're not looking for the truth, but you have it already. You have the truth. So based on that, now you are the judge. You can tell. And I tell you that you cannot tell, and you should not. And if you do it, you basically interfere in something that Allah reserved for Himself. Period. It's not like it's bad idea to do it. It's you are interfering, you're crossing the border and interfering with a job that Allah has reserved for Himself. So let's stop this nonsense and let's resist all these literatures and all these fatwa. And there are books are full of telling them, whoever that's kafir. This is kafir. That's a kafir. Somebody appointed himself, took something that Allah reserved for Himself, and then they started categorizing people. And it starts by categorizing in general and then individual. Now, this particular individual is kafir. It's a slippery road. It starts with saying, no, this, whoever category of people. And then, of course, we can start applying the metrics. We're going to start applying them to individuals. So this individual is a kafir. So, la ikraha fi din. There is no compulsion in religion. It was not the job of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ to convert people. أفأنت تكره الناس حتى يكونوا. It's not. It is not his job not to force them, even to convert them. To convert them, it's not his job. To convert people. Forget about forcing or punishing people for rejecting. We're talking about converting and producing a convert. That's not your job. That's Allah does that. What is your job? Your job is to embody this divine guidance and to deliver it in the best possible way. And the best possible way, it's not by words, it's but by what you do and what you contribute. It's your behavior, your interaction, your character, your contribution, your success in this life. That makes you a role model. That will attract people to you, and then you credit your deen for it. And all of this has to be done with compassion. So the whole package is totally messed up. Da'wah is driven by compassion. That you love the human being. You never hate people. It's like your child. Your child, you hate an act that your child did. Same thing with people. It should not translate to hatred of individuals or people. So you hate, because when you hate an act, you try to correct it. But when these people, they hate individuals, they kill them. And we know what happened to many, so much abuse of human rights by this ISIS and Syria and Iraq, etc. And presenting Islam, and then we complain that there is conspiracy against Islam and that people are conspiring. I don't know. I don't think we left any margin for people to conspire. And we did the full job, did the whole thing. We created an image problem of our deen just because of the way we are. We're not the good ambassadors for it. So it's a major change to direct the attention of Muslims inside, not outside. And when it goes outside, it goes with compassion to basically because you wish the best for people, because you enjoying this religion so much that you want everybody to know about it. It's like when you have a good news. And whenever you have a good news, you want the whole world to know about it. It should be the same attitude. That's the attitude that was driving Prophet Muhammad ﷺ to knock on doors and to talk to everybody who's willing to listen. It wasn't this idea of Ayman, if you keep muting. It wasn't this idea of, so you can see that there is no intersection between these. These are two different approaches completely. It's a compassion. It's first of all, focus on yourself to develop yourself into a role model, to maximize your contribution to the greater good, your positive impact on people, to cooperate with them for the greater good. That's your job. You do it in the pursuit of the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then when it comes to da'wah, you're already doing da'wah. That when you develop yourself into a role model, there is no bigger influence than da'wah by example or leadership by example. When you are developing yourself into a role model, when you are civically engaged, when you are a mercy to the society in which you are living, you're already doing da'wah. It's a silent da'wah which is the most effective. There is no, the other da'wah, which is start to talking about Islam is peace and Islam is this and Islam is great. Everybody say the same thing about their religion. What differentiates between people is not what they say about the religion. It's what they do. It's the model itself. And we are at big disadvantage because of the mess that is in all Muslim world. So we have extra responsibility as individuals and as a community here to be very distinguished, to be exemplary citizens, and to be very distinguished so that we can make up for all the mess and the bad news coming from the Muslim world. So, لا إكراه في الدين. قد تبين الرشد من الغي. You can see there is an implicit encouragement. It tells you that truth is distinguished from falsehood. So no comparison. True guidance has become distinct from error. It's an implicit. It's motivating you and inspiring you and encouraging you to follow the right path. Now, if there is a compulsion, this will not be needed. Yani. If there is a compulsion, there should be no encouragement. Yani. Why encouraging people? قد تبين الرشد من الغي. It's like the first verse alluding to forbidding intoxicant or alcohol. ومن ثمرات النخيل والأعناب تتخذون منه سكرا ورزقا حسنا. So Umar ibn Khattab, it was narrated that when he saw this, he realized that when they fermented these fruits, that's something bad. Why? Because it was mentioned in contracts with rizqan hasana, sakaran wa rizqan hasana. Here, قد تبين الرشد. This is rushd. That's a true guidance. And that's false. تبين الرشد من الغي. Distinct from error. So, encouraging you to follow the right path and to not to follow the wrong path. And then there is more encouragement because there is no compulsion. So the whole thing is relying on motivating and inspiring. And the Quran is source of inspiration. Yeah. فَمَنْ يَكْفُرْ بِالطَّاغُوتِ. Another hint. So there is Iman Billah and there is everything else called Taghut. فَمَنْ يَكْفُرْ. Whoever rejects false gods and believes in God, فقد استمسك بالعروة الوثقى لا انفصام لها. Big incentive. يعني that's better for you. يعني that's stronger. That's more reliable. That's you. استمسك بالعروة الوثقى لا انفصام لها. Says he grasped the firmest handhold, one that will never break. All of this because لا إكراه في الدين. All of this because there is no compulsion in religion. So Quran is encouraging. There is rushd and ghay, true guidance and error. And then Iman Billah and Taghut, false gods. And then there is, if you follow this, there is, you made the right choice, the right decision. Why? Because then you grasp the strongest, yani the firmest handhold. And then Wallahu Sami'un Alim. Wallahu Sami'un Alim. All of this is because La Ikrah fi Din, so we're relying on encouraging people to follow this path. And then Allah is watching. And keep in mind always when Quran says Allah is watching, it has that double role. First of all, it's an incentive to do good. Yani walillahi al-mathalu al-a'la, the boss is watching. So that's when employees, they do their best. Sami'un Alim, when Allah is hearing everything and knowing everything. And then, of course, strengthen your self-restraint. And I always say that we should be worshiping and obeying Allah out of love, not out of fear. We should be, and out of reverence. It's like you feel ashamed not to meet the expectation. Even the fear from Allah, it's not the fear that we know. It's not like the fear in this world. It's the first level of fear. It's a concern that you fall short of the expectations. That should even come first. So there is love, there is gratitude. These are the main engines that should be working. The others should be the spare engines. Should be the engines that you need them when the main ones do not work. Yeah. So love is much bigger, much stronger engine of motivation, because love pushes you to do the most, the max. Fear will drive you to do the minimum. That's why Muslims all the time, they ask for the passing grade. Yani, what's the minimum? Sahaba were used to ask, what's the most beloved deed to Allah? أحب الأعمال إلى الله. Because they were in a competition. يعني ليبلوكم أيكم أحسن عملا. So, سميع عليم. Love, gratitude is a big engine of motivation. يعني when imagine somebody saved your life, يعني surgeon or somebody saved your life. You are always indebted to that person, and you always thinking, what can I do to express my gratitude? Of course, I'm talking about normal Yani personality, not something that is crooked. That's something else. Sometimes it even backfires. People sometimes they do it in the wrong way, in an opposite way. So somebody did big favor to them, they returned in a negative way, or they tried to belittle it, or whatever. But we're talking about normal people. So Allah did not save your life. Yani Allah gave you life to begin with and gave you everything that you have. So these should be the biggest engines. And then the next, even when we get to and then the dependence, tawakkul, the fact that you need Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala badly. Yani. That's very important. And then comes the fear that you may fall short of the expectations. That's a big motivator. And if nothing works, then comes just the fear of punishment. Yeah. Which we introduce the first thing to our children. We drop all the first ones and then just pray. Otherwise, Allah will throw you in hellfire. Yeah. And then we keep going on with encouraging. Allahu waliyyu alladhina amanu. Allah wali. الذين آمنوا يخرجهم من الظلمات إلى النور. Then now there is light and there is darkness. والذين كفروا أولياؤهم الطاغوت يخرجونهم من النور إلى الظلمات. And then ends by saying أولئك أصحاب النار هم فيها خالدون. None of this works, then you know that you follow this path, you may end up in hellfire. And you perpetuate that. So if all these incentive and it did not work, and that's the last thing. Yeah. So Allah is the Allah of those who believe. Allahu waliyyu alladhina amanu. That's by itself very strong incentive to follow the true guidance, the true path. Yeah. Allah wali is going to be your Allah, your protector, your someone who's going to be in charge of you. Yani Allahu wali. It's a beautiful word. Yeah. Those who believe, he brings them. And then another incentive. And when you do that, and first of all, he's going to be your ally and your protector. And then he will bring you out of depth of darkness into the light. For the disbelievers, the other side will reject. Their allies are false gods who take them from the light into the depth of darkness. So then choose between the two allies and choose between the two paths. There is one way takes you from darkness to light, and the other takes from light to darkness. They are the inhabitant of the fire, and there they will remain. Nothing in Quran, nothing in this verse or in any verse will tell Muslim that to be busy with other people. And it's all here. And then when it comes to Iman and Kufr, it's all encouraging. There is no such thing. Every verse that may carry a meaning like this was contextual in that time of keep in mind that Quran has the huge challenge to be relevant to the Arabs at that time and to be valid and relevant for all places and all times. So keep that in mind. And that's for a human being, that's impossible. It's impossible to write a book that is relevant for Arabs at that time and then will be relevant for people anywhere, any time. But of course, coming from Allah, it was done. But we have to keep that in mind. We have to keep that in mind, that there are a number of things in a number of verses in Quran are contextual. It's not, there is no such thing. And the best or the metaphor that I found, many people liked it, is that the Quran is like the pharmacy. It's a pharmacy. It's a complete pharmacy. But it doesn't mean that you can take any medicine and give it to any person at any time in any dose. Because the very medicine that will cure somebody or save the life of a person can kill somebody else. Or just an overdose, or taken the wrong time, or taken with other medicine. It has to be, it's like that. So valid because Quran is valid for all times and all places, not every verse of it can be taken and then applied at all times and all places. The whole Quran is. And the foundational verses they are valid for all times and all places. But not any verse or any hadith. There are some groups call themselves Muslim groups, they are based on one hadith or based on one verse, and it's really contextual. And some hadith, they're not even sure that they're authentic, and they build around it a whole philosophy and the whole methodology or group or etc. So I find this, again, these verses, especially the La Ikrah, that's a principle in Islam, will not be, could not be, should not be superseded by any verse or any hadith, because that's very consistent with the fact that Allah gave us the choice, فَمَنْ شَاءَ فَلْيُؤْمِنْ وَمَنْ شَاءَ فَلْيَكْفُرْ, and did not impose, from Adam alayhi salam, did not impose this religion on anybody. Otherwise, why sending messengers? Why convincing? Allah could have made everybody believer with no effort. So I'm going to stop here, and inshallah, the next, the remaining of Al-Baqarah is about spending, is about infaq, and you will see how Quran does its work, how Quran comes and then deals with the problems, diseases, what prevents people from giving, and then try to fix them with its approach and its way, and recognize that these are human beings, they have weaknesses, and therefore it works. Quran works on those weaknesses and does not set the standard and say, this is it, you have to be here, you have to be at this level. No, it starts with you, wherever you are, and start working on those problems and do a lot of really treatments and fixing something here, adding something that is missing here, so that to shape you up spiritually. Type, stop here, inshallah, and we'll continue, inshallah, next week. If you have questions or comments.
Dr. Nimshi, can you explain the concept of Tawheed real quick? You said it's a spiritual relationship. The concept is to, and I couldn't follow.
The concept of Tawheed in Islam, unfortunately, was taken to different extremes. But mainly this religion is a relationship between you and Allah, and that relationship is called Tawheed. So Tawheed is the name of the relationship between the person and Allah, and it is that relationship, unlike a relationship between humans, which is usually has one facet, like friends or relatives or neighbors, etc. This relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has many dimensions and many facets, and you should be working on all of them to have balanced and strong. There is the track of love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and all of these are cycles. They can be vicious or they can be synergetic, because you come to a person telling the person about love of Allah, say, I don't find it yet. I don't have it yet. No, you have to work on it. And it doesn't come with in the package yet. It's not part of the deal. It's something that you have to work on it. Love of Allah, and like the muscles, all of these, there are exercises that you can work, you can perform, and they will strengthen that aspect. They don't expect to have biceps or triceps without doing those particular exercises. So love of Allah, gratitude, reverence, dependence, the fear in different ways. All of these aspects of your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has to be worked on. You have to work it out, and you have to work on them. One of the most effective tools is what we're doing, is studying the Quran. Because the Quran is a book from Allah, and it's a book about Allah. So just if I take a step back, there is no way you can build that relationship with Allah without an in-depth knowledge of Allah. This is something that most Muslims either do not know, or they think mistaken that they already know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enough. They don't need to know Allah more. So there is that relationship cannot be established without, or the way to establish is an in-depth knowledge of Allah. Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam put it nicely. Man araf Allah ahabba. Man araf Allah ahabba. So the more you know Allah, the more you love Him. So we have a way, we have a path, yani. We have a way to do it, yani. One. The second most effective tool is the names and attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And studying them, knowing them, memorizing them with the meaning and study, because that's the names of Allah. It's like your business card tells us what are your titles and qualifications or whatever, or your CV. وَلِلَّهِ الْمَثَلُ الْأَعْلَى. These are the names of Allah and the names and attributes of Allah. So that's, you want to know Allah, just go and study His names and attributes. So these are, of course, the ibadah itself. Ibadah itself is an exercise, if it is done properly, and if it is a good quality, it will bring you also closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَلَا يَزَالُ عَبْدِي يَتَقَرَّبُ إِلَيَّ بِالنَّوَافِلِ حَتَّى أُحِبَّهُ. That's the ultimate. So you start working on you loving Allah, and you keep working on this until you reach the point where Allah loves you. And when you reach that point, you got it made. Because the Hadith Qudusi goes on to say that Allah will be, you will see with the lights of Allah, and Allah will be always with you, and etc. So, knowing Allah to develop that relationship, and this is not one-time job, this is a lifelong journey and process, because every now and then it can become weak, and it has to be strengthened. So that's what I understand Tawheed. All this academic definition of Tawheed, I don't like them. I don't think they produce anything. They have been written in books, etc., and we don't see the results. We don't see that vibrant relationship with Allah, that's vibrant spirituality, the sensitivity, الحس المرهف في الحياة. We don't see that. We don't see it because that the Tawheed that we have in our heart is very dry. It's a very rigid. It's very superficial. It probably it will wear out, and it requires always renewal and revival and recharging.
السلام عليكم.
عليكم السلام ورحمة الله
واحد.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much for the enlightenment. My question is concerning the early Islamic conquest. How do we articulate it in terms of the way the Muslims are acquiring empires and the spread of Islam in a way that, because sometimes you hear that there was forced conversion and the churches were destroyed, things like that. So how do we bridge that gap? And also on the part of jizya, how do we explain all this? Thank you.
Right. Even though this is probably not exactly in the topic, but briefly.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah.
First of all, going all the way to Dawla Amawiya, which is the Muawiyah starting, which happened 30 years after the death of Rasulullah. All of that is not deen. All of that is history. So we should study it as history. And when you study the Ottoman Empire or the Abbasi or the Amawi or the whatever, you are studying history, you're not studying Islam. That's very important, because that's not the history of Islam. That's the history of Muslims. The history of Muslims, which means it is a human thing. And therefore, there are some bright spots, there are some very dark spots, and there are some very shameful acts, and especially during the transition of power and the killing and the mass killing, etc. So that's a history. It will not make us shake our belief in Islam, because that's not Islam. That's the way some people practice Islam, understood Islam and practice it. Whatever they done right is for them. Whatever they're done good, bad is for them. Quran solves this from the roots by saying تلك أمة قد خلت لها ما كسبت ولكم ما كسبتم ولا تسألون عما كانوا يفعلون. History is only good for lessons, so not for guidance. No, that's not deen. So all this khilafah, first of all, I don't know why they call it khilafah, because it was an absolute power that was inherited from father to son. It should be called by its name. It was a dictatorship, or it was an absolute power. It was a family, it was dynasty, it was an empire, period. Whatever they done good or bad, that's a different story, but this is not khilafah, or this is not the religious things. That's and most of things that happened at that time were political, and then where they wrapped them in religion. I'm not saying all of it is bad. It definitely is not all of it is good, but it's history. There is Khilafah al-Rashida, from the death of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam to the end of the Khilafah of Ali ibn Abi Talib, and then transition to the dynasty rule. That's also not deen. That's, of course, much closer. Leadership by consent. The whole thing was much healthier, and things, there is a big jump after Khilafah Rashida. But still, it's not deen. Why? It is not deen because there was no Quran revealed to endorse what they have been doing. So the deen ended with Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The deen ended with Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because when Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was alive, anything that happens, Quran is revealed to tell them what went right and what went wrong, etc. So there is the stamp. That stopped. So whatever Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radhiyallahu anhu did, whatever Umar ibn Khattab radhiyallahu anhu did, everybody did, it cannot be seen as a religion. It's ijtihad at that time in that context. And I will always use the example of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, his decision to fight those who refused to pay zakat is not religious. It was a political decision. Now, was it a good political decision? I can tell you it's yes, because that's what every government will do. Just let any county here or city refuse to pay taxes, and you'll see what's going to happen here. So, but it was the political decision, not religious. You cannot take it and say, okay, I'm going to apply it anytime, no, it was a contextual decision. At that time, the state was under threat of nation. Religion was still very fragile. There was circumstances that led to that decision. And then the example that I keep using, that Umar ibn Khattab, few years after the death of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, made some ijtihad in things that were mentioned in Quran. Whatever they decided at that time to go out and attack the empire, the Byzantine Empire in Damascus, or the Persian Empire in Iran and Iraq. Was this religion? No, it was not a religion. This is not, there is nothing in religion that says that Muslims go and attack other people. There was a context at that time that was very common at that time for empires to expand. And if you don't start it, you may be the victims of it. And there is a completely different context. There is a completely, and Islam was just starting, it's a completely different context, especially if you compare to today. Today, you can do da'wah to the whole world while you're sitting in your living room. You can practice your religion. There is a treaties. There is a treaty internal, which is called Constitution, that you're signing on it and you have to honor it. And there is an international treaty. There are relations. The states are signing on a treaty. They have to honor it. So this idea that we are not doing it now because we're weak, and the day we have a strong Muslim, first of all, there is no Islamic state. There is no political system in Islam. There are political principles and guidance. So Islam does not call for what they call it, religious. What's the name for religious state? There is a technical name. دولة دينية يعني. دولة دينية. The Islam does not recognize that. Whoever is in charge is accountable. Is not ظل الله في الأرض. Is not ruling on behalf of Allah. Is someone who is accountable, and we have seen Umar ibn Khattab accountable, and etc. So a lot of things have to be fixed. But bottom line, and this is not even me saying this, it is, I mentioned recently that Dr. Yusuf Qaradawi in his book about jihad said there is no jihad talab in Islam. There is no such thing as Muslims go to attack other people, either to impose a religion or to take their wealth as spoils of war and their women and there is no such thing. That it's not consistent with the principles and values and the essence of Islam. Things that happened, there was a context where these things were common. It's like slavery was common and Islam tried to fix it. It's like alcohol was very an integral part of the lives of the Arabs and Islam tried to fix it. Islam came in a mess, in a total mess in the Arabian Peninsula, these tribal societies fighting each other all the time, and they have very weird, their life was so empty. As somebody said, that basically people are worried about food because there was a shortage of it, and there is, the psychology was messed up, the world was messed up, there was no order, there was no treaty, there was nothing. That's where Islam came. So we have to keep that context, Islam, the context in which Islam was revealed. Yes, it is valid for all times and all places, but you don't take any verse or any hadith or anything that was done by Khulafa al-Rashidin. And of course the history, and I don't even talk about it. That's history, and starting from Muawiyah all the way till this time, that's history. It's not the source of guidance. What these empires have done, they have done it in that context, but has nothing to do with religion.
Jazakallah kul khair, Dr. Suhail. Inshallah, we'll see you next Sunday.
Wait, Dr. Suhail, sorry,
Yes.
I wanted maybe a little bit, if you could share with us concerning the elections, any thoughts and opinion you have?
I already mentioned last time. I will send you probably a post that I made. This very weird election the Republican nominee has a very strong base, but it is not large enough, and the Democrat nominee is very weak. But he's going to get a lot of votes. Actually, most of his votes he's not going to get them because of himself. Most of the votes that Biden is going to get are the votes that are going to go to Democratic Party, regardless of the nominee, and the votes that are going against Trump. So it's a very weird election. Trump, he's running in the worst conditions that any president can run into, because no incumbent wants to run under the COVID and the economic